Grinding in games is an important aspect in many games, particularly those in the RPG genre, but what really got me motivated to talk about this subject is the idea of clicker or idle games, which I believe are the ones that took the idea of grinding to its extreme. Sure, I've played my fair share of MMORPGs and online games with daily bonuses that incentivize coming back day in and day out to perform the same song and dance. Some might even call those daily tasks part of the gameplay loop, but taken to the extreme is in fact grind. I've played it all and I know the tactics games use to try and get you to come back, from RuneScape to WoW to Guild Wars 2 and any other mobile game even. The tactics are almost the same these days, but that isn't really grind, that's just incentive to come, play, and participate in the grind. Grind and gameplay are very closely attached. Grind is really when the gameplay loop is stretched out artificially to be really long. In RuneScape, for example, it will take days if not weeks of mindlessly doing the same tasks to level up to level 99, which is the max level. People would intentionally stand in the same set of trees for hours at a time, just chopping them down, wait for the stump to grow back, and do it all over again. Same for fishing, mining, and even combat. The task itself might not be fun and the repetition grows old fast, yet people still waste so much time doing these things because there was a goal in mind: reach the max level. This is particularly prevalent in RPG games, but as more games these days incorporate RPG elements, grind becomes introduced there too. As fun as a game like Borderlands is, it is closer to Diablo, an action RPG, than it is to Doom or Quake, despite the fact that Diablo is not a first-person shooter, while Doom and Borderlands both are. The simple introduction of level in a game also helps introduce grind. Oh no, not feeling strong enough or capable enough to do a certain task? Just grind for levels. And if that's not enough, if levels don't exist in a game, then it's gear or items or potions, something that can buff the character and make the game a little bit easier. The difference between grind and gameplay loop is particularly subjective, but it's basically the point where the gameplay loop repeats for a period of time or repetitions where if it were not for some final goal somewhere down the line, the player would have stopped playing or performing the specific gameplay loop. Everybody has a different tolerance to where a gameplay loop becomes grind. Playing a single game of a MOBA like League of Legends or Dota 2 might be grind for someone, because of the loop where minions come out and you have to try and last hit the minions repeatedly to gain gold, and it can feel like a chore. But for someone else, a single game might not be grindy at all. But when you repeat the game, say to improve or increase in rank, then it becomes grind. Although it is a grind outside of the gameplay itself, grinding for rank is still grind. Sometimes though you encounter grinding games with no elements of RPG. For example, in Age of Empires 2, a real-time strategy, one might verse someone to such a point where all the resources that were available on the game have all been mined or chopped down. A game can take hours to play with one person eventually being whittled down by the opponent, and the opponent either surrenders or there's nothing left and the opponent is forced to surrender because they've been defeated. Now most of the time this won't happen, but it can, and it's also a type of grind not external like a rank system or one found with loot and levels. To put simply, to grind is to waste time when the game largely ceases to be fun. Once a player recognizes that something is a waste of time, the facade or immersion of the game fades away, leaving the player with only the fact that they are wasting their time on the grind, so they optimize it and often go for a more boring but more optimal route, which results in grind. The less brain power required, the better it is for grind and the less fun. It is a dangerous path, not too dissimilar to addiction. Grind is almost never worth it, but we like to use tricks to make us think that it is actually worth a time investment, sunk cost fallacy and all. Just look at all these big numbers. If I do this for a few hours more, I can make the big numbers even bigger. But if I spend a few hours trying to figure out the optimal route, I can save so much more time in a way that I waste my time. Now, not all grind is bad or evil. Many games have some element of grind to them, but done properly and in small bursts, it can be done well. Think of bosses in a Dark Souls type game. While your gear and character level and stats do matter, it is ultimately about figuring out the boss and grinding the boss's HP to 0 that allows you to proceed forward with the game. The boss fight is a grind, but a short one. Even in the most ridiculous of challenge runs, a boss will never take more than 20 minutes to beat once you know how to beat it. At worst, you might spend a couple hours learning the boss and repeatedly dying to that same boss over and over while you're learning how to beat them. Compare that to the time someone might take grinding in World of Warcraft to get the mount that they want. It could be literal days, and often would require to fight a boss many times for an item with a small drop percentage. And 20 minutes or even a few hours to learn the boss seems like nothing in comparison, but it is still a grind. And now we get to the star attraction. The beautiful new genre of game that takes grind to its peak extreme, clicker games. The idea of this game or this type of game is that there's some unit of stuff that you want to make. It could be dollars or cookies or gold. It doesn't matter what it is. The whole point is to grind up for more of that stuff and get better at making more of that stuff and faster. It's not exactly exciting. It's not exactly good gameplay, and it really isn't that fun. Yet it still exists, and people sink countless hours into these games over long periods of time, myself included. From a gamer perspective, these types of games don't offer anything particularly exciting or great, and if they suddenly cease to exist, I very much doubt people would actually miss them. On the flip side, though, these games are very easy to make for a developer, and if you're learning to code any type of program, I might even suggest that this would be a fun way to learn doing some of the basics of coding, but this video isn't about that. Clicker games take the idea of grind and make it the game. You grind for money. I use money as a catch-all term here for all the things you grind for in these types of games, but anyway, you use money to buy something that will help you generate more money, either through an idle generator, which gives you some X amount of money per second, or something that increases the amount of money you get per click. If it seems like a simple concept, that's because it is. In order to add replayability, these type of games offer a sort of reset. After a while, the numbers become so big as to be meaningless. Octillions, nonillions, decillions, numbers so large that I even had to look up how many zeros that is. Many of these games offer a reset which earns you a passive buff for your new game to help the new game make more money faster than the previous. Maybe I shouldn't even call it new game, but more like rounds. But you get the idea. No other game, even grindy RPGs, can match the level of grind in clicker games. It is a niche game type, and you won't be seeing any big AAA title releases of clicker games, but I could see it being used as some mini-game, but not the whole game, and it has its fans. Perhaps I am even one of them. I enjoy seeing the creative ways that developers use to try and get you to come back to their game and continue with the endless grind, or what languages and tools they use to make the game. I've even seen Cookie Clicker recreated in Excel using some Visual Basic. It wasn't as pretty as the real version, but it worked just the same. And that's how simple the core concept of the gameplay is. It can be done in Excel. Grind can certainly be fun, but it leads to certain problems which reduce fun. When the grind becomes too much, people will try to game the system. Min-maxing and optimizing on the gameplay inherently reduces fun. Sure, some people might enjoy trying to find the most effective route to accomplishing a task, but that becomes metagaming. By mixing min-maxing into the game, you stop playing the game, and you're trying to game the game. It isn't about the game anymore, and it's more akin to speedrunning. In fact, speedrunning is a type of min-maxing and route optimization. It's a fun and interesting problem, but it stops being about the game itself, and about time saving, which, hot take here, I think is usually less fun than the game itself. Now, this isn't me going against speedrunning. I just think for an average player, trying to speedrun a game is more stressful and less fun than playing a game in a more casual environment. But I can see the appeal of it in the case of replaying a game for the upteenth time where the grind becomes too much. There is, after all, a reason why games still include challenges and grind, and that's because somewhere the lizard part of our brains finds it fun, even if it can be mindless repetition. And there you have it. Grind is an important part of many games, and when done right, it can be fun, but grind is subjective, and it can deter some people with a lower tolerance or too little time or desire to invest that time. Thanks so much for watching.